I'm Spencer Hodgetts, founder of Rebound Dog, and welcome to our sofa meetup for July 2025. We provide the space where trust enables curious and transparent conversations, and what we've achieved this month is found two awesome innovators in the field of data. And that's all I'm saying at the moment. So we'll come back after a short break and I'll introduce my two awesome guests. Thank you. Well, welcome back and thank you. I'd first like to introduce Albert Di Rienzo, co-founder, president and CEO of VoiceVet. And I'd like Albert just to say a quick hello about what he does.
All right, thank you very much, Spencer. So Albert Di Rienzo, and really I'm focused on One Health, leading with professional animal solutions first through a non-contact sensor, cloud-based dashboard with predictive analytics and a mobile app, and we provide health and wellness data, clinical data.
Thank you. And Zach, we've met before. Zach's been a guest on our show a few months ago with Cheryl Joyce, who's in the audience, I believe, and also with Simon Robinson, who I can't see, but I believe is here. Zach, would you like to reintroduce yourself and tell us what you're doing with Nala, please?
Hi, I'm Zach Moore. I'm building Nala, and it's a product that we hope will bring people closer to their pets.
Thank you, that's brilliant. I'm going to go back and ask Albert. Albert, in the pre-warm-up conversation, you were talking about 4 billion sets of data in, was it 1 second? That amazed me. Can you explain to our viewers and our guest audience what you're doing with 4 billion sets of data and how it benefits pet health and the professional animal audience?
Absolutely. So we have a very small, safe non-contact sensor that could be on a collar, it could be worn on a harness or embedded in an animal's environment, any species, any breed. And within that package, there's three additional sensors that collect over 4 billion samples a second. Vital signs data, so things like blood pressure or heart rate variability, respiration rate, as well as contextual data. So what's the animal's body posture? What were their activity levels, their calories expended? We do some processing on that sensor, then send it to the cloud for machine learning algorithms to work with that data to find, what are the new predictive analytics? If your animal continues to head in this direction, they're going to have osteoarthritis. So take this new food or whatever the case may be. So we're really about providing that for the animal professional in a graphic manner. They don't see 4 billion samples a second. They see it graphically and they can drill down if they want to. And then the pet parent can also get access to that information on their mobile app, but at a higher level.
That's fascinating. Zach, you talked about, Albert's just mentioned the pet parent sector. Can you explain what Nala is doing to benefit the pet parent?
Yeah, so similar to what Albert is focusing on, we believe that there's a lot of data points that are going unmissed, and pet parents don't have the tools that they need to know if they should go into the vet and get a checkup. We just don't have a lot of tools available to us. So we're focusing on building a product that can be used by the pet parent to monitor various analytics in a user-friendly way, so that we can just have more visibility into what might be going on in our pet's life, whether that's physical fitness, maybe possibly some stress events. We believe it's a really exciting space.
And the other thing I was thinking of with both of you guys is you started somewhere, and a lot of the audience is looking at, I've got this idea, or what you call that, how do I turn it from an idea into a minimal viable product? How do I grow it? How do I scale it, which is a wonderful common use word. So can I take you both individually back or have a conversation between the two of you. Where did you start? What gave you the idea of developing this, and where was your passion? Where did it start as an idea? So if somebody's thinking, oh, I've got this idea, maybe what if we did this? Can we do this? This is what's wrong with the system. This is what's wrong with X. This is what's wrong with Z. So can you just give a quick thought process on either of you of what drove you to be where you're sitting here today?
Zach, did you want to go?
Yeah, so I've got a husky, and if you're a husky owner, you know that when they're about a year old, they're absolutely insane. And so we went through everything. I lost my deposit 4 or 5 times. So we've been in for an ingestion object, for an object ingestion, dog fights. We've been to emergency clinic a lot. And I've got an Australian Shepherd as well. So they're both working dogs. They're both highly active. And there were a lot of events where we didn't need to go into the vet, but I just wanted peace of mind to know that everything was going to be all right. And then there were other times where we should have gone earlier, but I just had no data points. I didn't know that something was up with my Aussie's hip. And I took her in to a physical therapist for dogs, essentially. And she's like, oh, yeah, there's something up with her gait. She's walking strangely. And I just couldn't see that. And so a bunch of events like that I'm sure many parents can relate to, where we're not trained as veterinarians. And to a veterinarian, they're going to see that right away. But I just wanted something where maybe it could give me more peace of mind or a sense of something that's going on, so then I could take them in. And so that kind of sent me down this path of talking to people, talking to veterinarians, talking to pet parents, and looking for ways that I can bring sort of some technology in that space to our daily life.
Fascinating. And Albert, I know you have a research background.
Absolutely. I'm both a computer scientist and a forensic scientist. I used to be a professor of forensic science and chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear related forensics. And so I've mostly been in human health. So where Zach's a young man, I'm an old guy, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I've put over 100 medical products to market in the human space. And I noticed that, of course, in the animal space, there was a severe lack of innovation and bringing these new tools that could be used by the animal health professional as well as by the pet parents or any animal caretaker. Maybe you're somebody who's responsible for cows, dairy cattle or the like. And so my journey really was looking at the number of different problems that needed to be solved to rapid diagnosis, remote diagnosis. It's almost impossible to collect data out of the clinic. And so, how do we solve that? How do we give them clinically actionable data? How do we let the pet parent know that their animal is performing well and they're healthy and the like? And so what I did is I sort of married a couple things from my history. One, I was very fortunate. I was one of 13 scientists appointed to the National Biodefense Science Board, and that was to keep the public safe from chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear threats. Well, part of that is it has to do with animal health. About 7 out of 10 infectious diseases that animals get make a leap to humans. And they get about 70% of our chronic diseases. And then I also was the lead researcher on the U.S. Army Personal Status Monitor, which was to monitor the health of warfighters in theater. And if something happened to them, then how could you triage their health? So sort of married those things, married that sensor technology, that communications technology, that biology or biodefense type of scenario into this one solution where we're looking to predict events before they ever occur. And that way you take the most minimally invasive approach. Maybe it's a lifestyle change for the animal, food change. Maybe it's a nutraceutical or some sort of pharmaceutical, but you try to delay the most serious stuff like a surgery or radiation oncology or something like that to the end. So we're really about innovating to help that whole ecosystem, starting first with the professionals and then moving into all these other different market verticals.
So if we're looking at, you're taking an idea and your background in research and data work, giving you the skill set to build something as a test product. For people trying to start out, they're going, oh, I've tried that and I failed and it doesn't work, and what else can I do? You guys must have hit some hiccups along the way and still probably doing so. So if you've, without embarrassing yourself too much, do you want to explain a couple of those, or what you might have incurred? That life isn't a bunch of roses when you're doing this sort of stuff.
Well, when you bring up, I might have failed and it's discouraging. Failure is an opportunity and it's feedback. So it might actually bring you to something different. Like, to say that an idea failed is technically true, but you need to align whatever you're working on to a vision and to your own values. So if your value is health and wellness, then that can still succeed, and maybe the method that you enact, that what you end up building, that's going to change, and that always changes. So that's how I look at it, is like, as far as the end result, there's a lot of failure there, but you need to just continue and have a vision and values that are applied onto that, so that you can continue to iterate.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with Zach, and it's what your passion. My passion's always been in innovation, but not innovation for innovation's sake, right? It's really about applying it to solve real world problems, and of course the passion there for animal and human health and well being, as well as the system itself. When you think about human healthcare or animal healthcare, there's a lot of touch points. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and it's sort of a rich opportunity for many solutions. So certainly, I've failed at especially in the research world. There's a lot of things you work on that you have to pivot in order to get something that meets the needs of the market. I will say one thing that I thought was really important for our scenario is that every step of the way we've had animal health professionals and caretakers involved in helping us design the solution that would be something that really helps them in their day-to-day activities. And so again, if you got a passion for it, it's challenging. For me, I'll say the technology is not the struggle, and I don't mean that arrogantly. It's just I've been doing it for so long. The tech is reasonably doable. It's really packaging. The fund. Make sure you have the funding coming in that you need at the levels that you need. That you can surround yourself with excellent collaborators and partners, and look to bring some game changers to the market. And a lot of times we focus on tech, but a new business model could be a huge innovation, right? If it helps to streamline the way business is done.
So you've touched on team. Do you find that essential? Or you talked two things I've just picked up. Albert, you've touched on team involving people to work with you, but you've also touched on what I call end user, the customer, the professionals who'll be potentially using your service. Have you found that that's become essential? That gives you a testing ground to see if you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is essential because we want to make sure that what we're doing is, we as technologists or scientists go, hey, this is a great idea. And the reality is it may not be. It may not solve the problems for those people that you're trying to help out. And so we believe it is essential to have their voices heard. So every step of the way, whether it was product concept, and the design and the development and the testing of it, we make sure that the professionals and the caretakers are involved. And then truly, you've got to have a team that is, and whether the team is all part of the company or they're those external collaborators, you want that same sort of passion for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to bring to market, that you have as a founder or as a co-founder. So I find also listening, there's a lot of smart people out there, and I find that collaborating and really working with others who have expertise in diverse areas brings about a better overall solution versus trying to be this, not invented here type of scenario.
We had a similar conversation on that theme around how do we get a few months ago on a sofa conversation with Caroline Johnson and Mindy Dutka, looking at how to get shelters to adopt new tools, new solutions. And Caroline is an ex-CEO of a rescue shelter in the UK and vice chair of one of the big rescue organisations in this country. Looked at it from her experience. It was actually asking the customer what they want, because all too often she found somebody go, oh, we've got this marketing product solution, you need it, we've designed it, and they might see 10 or 20 in a day or in a week, and they all become the same thing. So she was actually saying, her advice was, like you were saying, is go and talk to your customer, involve your end user, rather than build it in the old model, build it and they'll come, as I think is a long gone, especially the way tech is designing things at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree.
In a pre-call, Zach, you asked a question and it stuck with me. What are the trends? I think you asked Albert, what do you see as trends in, I'll use the word loosely, animal welfare, this area, this arena that we hang out in and we play in and we work in. What are the trends that are starting to show up, whether they're in data analysis or lifestyle choices, education?
Yeah, if I can just share one that's in my mind very clearly right now, is that in New York, your pet is considered an immediate family member. And
Yeah.
so that's the most prominent one that comes to mind right now. Not property, as in many states, but there are now, I believe, 6 states that have a higher level of classification for your pets, and New York specifically, immediate family member. So with that new classification in people's minds, and I think it opens up uh, a lot. How do you take care of an immediate family member? And can we now take care of pets in the same way? So I think I don't know if that trend is going to go everywhere, but it's something that New York did.
That's fascinating. And presumably that will help on the touchy subject of pets in rental properties, which I know is a big issue both here in the UK and also in the US, where it's a sticking point. It's a big, can be a big no-go if you've got a dog, and if you've got a husky of that size. I believe in the States it can be size related and so forth. So that could be a quite game changer.
Yeah, I've got 2 dogs that are 45 pounds, and then one who's under 40. And since I have three and we travel everywhere, we break almost every rule. We break every hotel's max of 2 pets rule. I just show up and I say I have three, and thank God for everybody being willing to accommodate us. But on paper, we break many hotel rules, and we also break the weight limit restriction. And also, there are still many apartment complexes that don't allow husky as a breed, similar to the Rottweiler pit bull. So there's still like some challenges there.
Digressing, we used to have 5 miniature dogs, and when we were renting, we'd go, oh, how many dogs you got? 5. No, you can have 1. I said, well, our 5 dogs are the size of smaller than one of Ben's dogs or one of your huskies, but and it was a very limited conversation. So I've personally been there. I understand, which is why I'm fascinated by that trend where there's a change in New York. And Albert, do you see new trends?
Yeah, I mean, I see what was happening in the human world, or almost exclusively in the human world, is moving and has moved into the animal health world. When you think of, again, the professional, there's a lot of specialization, right? Now you see dermatologists, you see oncologists, neurologists, and so forth. So there's a lot of specialization that's happened. You can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? Sometimes people don't like all the different subspecialties, but there's still general practitioners and care. So I've seen a lot of that. You see a lot more molecular genetic related medicine, a lot in microbiome types of applications, stem cell related applications of new diagnostics. And of course, as you've articulated, Spencer, in the big data, right? Being able to capture all this disparate data and putting new learnings to that. So I see a lot of research also going on in trying to lengthen the life, provide better care, new foods, better foods, lengthen the life and quality of the animals. So I'm pretty excited about all this science and technology. I see this looking to solve real world problems, and hopefully in a cost effective manner, right? You can't get but so extreme in cost. So you got to try to keep workflows reasonable, cost reasonable, training also reasonable, instead of having extremes in all those different areas.
So is there any recommendations you'd look to somebody starting out that says, I've got this idea?
Zach, you want to lead on that one, or if you want me to? I don't care.
Just to try it, or just make it. Well, practically, outside of any idea, de-scope it so that you can do it in about a weekend. So come up with something where you can manually create it, whether that's on paper, whether it's like creating some things that are aligned with the real outcomes, and just like really, really de-scope it. And then if you want to test the commercial viability of it, uh, the phrase is do things that don't scale. So build something very manual. It's a very labor intensive process, but you can build it in a weekend. Hand out devices to people that are not your production device and get feedback from them. Or if it's a website or an app, draw it out on paper, even give that to people. Ask them if they received data on this, on this app that you've drawn out. Would it be useful to them? And use that to start conversations, because the idea starts from the conversations, and you want to have as many conversations as you possibly can at the beginning, so that you can iterate and then ultimately align on something where you're able to provide value with your own skill set and that you want to do, and that's aligned with your thesis and your vision for this idea.
Yeah, and I'd say definitely, what is that concept, and do, as Zach mentioned, bring the end users or those who are going to benefit from it into the equation, and certainly get their inputs, and then try to look at what's a practical way to tackle the creating the solution. Some things, when you start talking about a drug, or new some new devices, or whatever the case may be, they can be fairly complex and fairly expensive to bring to market. But try to put that vision together, capture that vision. The other thing, if at all possible, if you think you have a unique solution, you want to try to protect that solution. And so, if you can conduct a search on what else might be out there that would potentially you would infringe upon, or prevents, puts a roadblock up for you not being able to work on that identical thing to bring it to market, because there maybe already have something in the works. So you take sort of this big picture view of it as much as you can. But again, I agree with Zach. If you can get stuff into people's hands sooner to play with, it's always better, and you can get some nice feedback on it. But sometimes it really is just going to be bringing a concept or an idea, because a new drug can be billions of dollars and many years to get something to market.
And do you think we should all be willing to flex away from our original unique, what we think is a unique idea, taking this idea of your research and Zach putting a trial product out there, that having listened to what the feedback is, we should be seriously willing to flex away from the original hard thought we had. We think we're going to change the world with X when it could be X plus 2.
Yeah, I think the idea has its life of its own. And once you've started it and you've planted the seeds for it, it'll grow into something and change over time. And of course, when you bring on the right people, you build your team, that's also going to change because now you're all building something together. So it definitely flexes and changes and grows and becomes something bigger than you could ever just do on your own.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to be willing to pivot to bring the right solution to the end user. There are spaces, I will say, though I'm not going to say this happens in the majority of instances, but where the end user may not actually know how they would put something to use. And we experienced a little bit about that when we started to say, hey, you can now monitor the health of animals anywhere in the world, anytime. So give them that remote monitoring capability in a very simple package. And some of the specialists really grasp it pretty quickly. Oh, it'd be great if I could manage and monitor my cardiac patients out of the clinic because they're in their natural setting. But a lot of times, maybe for a general practitioner, and I'm not saying this meanly because they have their hands full with a lot of things, the remote monitoring may not have been as obvious to them. So I think you need to help them as well. Put scenarios out there to say, well, what if I could do this for you? What if I could do that? Would that be beneficial? And engage in those productive conversations.
So would you say, thinking of conversations, would you say one of the biggest skills for a startup entrepreneur is to be able to listen?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think listening and communicating, right? You've definitely got to be able to listen, and you need to be able to hopefully articulate your idea as well, so it can be clear to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the other thing I'm thinking of in this journey from a idea, startup ideation through MVP, minimum viable product, to something that could launch, is, do you think a lot of startup businesses, for want of a phrase, are too focused on that word called success, that they think they must have success and have the product out there by a certain time zone and a certain number of customers buying it on a regular basis or using this? We're too focused on trying to achieve success before we've gone through all the trials and struggles that you've both gone through.
I think it can definitely cloud the steps that you need to take next when you're trying to aim for success rather than trying to aim for truly understanding the feedback that you're receiving right now for the product that you've put out into the market right now. And I think acting on that feedback is more valuable than anything else because you have to live in the present and have a vision for the future, but you won't be able to get there if you can't clearly hear the feedback that you're receiving right now, if you have a product that's in the market or if you're testing. And thinking about success isn't going to matter because you don't have access to those markets that will bring you the success that you're planning for, and unless you're able to get there with what you actually have in the market right now. That would be kind of how I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, uh, the innovators as well as the a lot of times others, focus heavily on the product. It's the easy thing to do. Everything's about the product or the technology. But you need to also consider other aspects of the business that you've got to bring forward concurrently, that maybe that's not your passion, or maybe it's not your area of expertise, but you need to have those that can help you get there. So when the product is ready to go, you've already built that foundation in marketing, branding, communication, your sales or distribution channels, your operational infrastructure, those types of things. And a lot of times we have a tendency not to focus on those. It's about the tech or the product. But so I would say, again, take this big picture view. And sometimes I think, funders a lot of times, and thank God for them, because they can put the money in to help get these things over the finish line. But it can act a little bit like Wall Street, where it's short-term focus versus looking at a real long-term focus. And so I think if you can find those that really get your vision and understand what it takes to bring something to market, and you have those investors along with you for the ride, just like your other collaborators, it can make your market introduction much more successful.
That's great, because I was scanning through the messages that are coming in on the LinkedIn that we were talking, and Cheryl, who was on a guest with Zach previously, put up a question: what do both constitute as success? Is it number of users or, and some of what you've just said, Albert and Zach, is answering that question. Do you have anything you'd like to add, what you constitute as success?
Well, I'll just say, it's going to vary by person. So for me, I never was doing, this voice startup because I want to be a billionaire, I want to have a unicorn, or whatever the case may be. It was about solving real problems, minimizing or reducing as much as possible suffering, hoping to provide better outcomes, health outcomes, quality of life, being able to provide sort of a unique personalized health for each animal, which benefits not only the pet parent, but it benefits the caretaker, the professionals, and so forth. So really getting the product to market and seeing the benefits of that product, and solving those real world problems for these different use cases or the different users is what motivates me. Plus, as a sidebar, I love the idea. This is my fourth startup, and I love the idea of creating careers, providing career opportunities for people. I love the idea of advancing the technology and doing things with it that has never been done before, and solving those problems. I like the idea of building a nice ecosystem of collaborators and partners that are also benefiting. So I enjoy that, and making a place that people would be passionate to come into work and just love what they're doing.
Again, like Albert said, it's everyone's going to have their own things that get them fired up about what they're building. For me, I feel like I owe my dogs a lot. I really do think they saved my life, or in that they turned it down a much healthier path for me personally, in that I owe them. And so if I can build something that gets them one extra month of life, or a healthier quality, even if just a little bit, that's worth it to me, to do everything that I'm doing. And it absolutely can be applied to, there's a lot of other macro issues that we're seeing across the world with pets. And I think it can contribute to that as well. But even if I get something small, like being able to help my own pets in a small way, it would be worth it to me.
That's great. The other comment that's coming in from a mate colleague of mine down the road here in Cumbria, in the northwest of the UK, from Ashley McCarthy, is commented on, excuse me, it would appear the large, both in human and pet welfare, it's still being controlled by the large entities, without naming names. and they have the leverage control change. And this is about being stoic to survive. But as independent micro businesses, do you from your experience and the networks of people who are doing similar work to yourselves, do you see that we as micro businesses be able to use the word of pivot more easily to adapt to these market changes? So are we more adaptable? Can we create the change more easily?
I think we're more in tune with what's actually going on. I think I think really large organizations can have quite a lot of blind spots just by nature of product development. There's a lot of people that have to contribute to a product, and it ends up being very refined in the end, because there could be supply chain issues. There's a lot of elements to control, especially when you develop a global product. But like the smaller and more nimble you are as a company, the more you're able to respond to changes and build something that better suits your audience.
Yeah, I,
This
I
goes back
totally
to
agree.
listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, to your point, Spencer, I think, and to Zach's comment, I think we are the smaller businesses. We're much more agile. We are able to adapt to changes much quicker. We don't have all the we're fairly flat infrastructures. We don't have all the levels or different sort of verticals to internal verticals to deal with, so we can be responsive. I won't say who because I don't know if I'm allowed to or not. But there was a major animal health company that I was listening to one of their business development persons speak at a conference, and they said that over 50% of their innovations come from outside the company, but because they just can't innovate that rapidly. They can't adopt. It takes a lot of resources. And just as a sidebar, my previous startup to this, we did 26 new human medical innovations in about one third the time and at about one third the cost that the major corporations would do, right? And so I think, and it was a small company that was eventually acquired. But I think on the sort of the flip side, those same strategics, those same big corporations, it can make excellent um, partners and excellent collaborators in a number of different ways. So we talk to whether they're making new foods or whether they're doing a new pharmaceutical or a new device. We engage with a lot of them out there and find that we can bring something better to market without interfering with one another.
You've touched on something that I've just picked up, Albert, is about being acquired. And I asked a question about being stressed about being successful. Do you think we get too stressed as small startups about this? You've touched on that wonderful word of unicorns, about trying to be the next unicorn. Do you think we become too concerned in trying to create a business model that's going to be the next unicorn and the next Uber, the next Airbnb in the pet world, and being acquired? Or do you think we should be happier looking for investors that get what we're understand who we are and what we're trying to achieve, so they're collaborative partners on the same wavelength as what's going on in our mind?
Yeah, when I talk to investors, or others, I mean, I'm upfront that I'm not doing this because I'm looking to get acquired. And I always say that my personal goal is to continue to grow the business, continue to expand the animal health and well-being solutions, and then move into human, and continue to expand that and marry the learnings from both the animal and human to bring about better outcomes overall. So sort of that one health definition where it's animal, human, and environmental variables as well. So I make it clear now that doesn't mean that they're still not looking for returns in 5 years or whatever the number is that's out there. But the way we structure the business is we we can license technology, we can white label it, we can spin out different market verticals of areas that we're not particularly interested in focusing on, but would bring value to others. And that allows us to continue to move our sort of grand vision forward while also satisfying potential investors' financial objectives or some of the strategic partners' desires for new innovation. So I think you can't come to a meeting of the minds in every different scenario, but we go in trying to create the winning scenarios for all those who are involved.
What's your take on that, Zach?
I'm just learning from Albert's answer on this because I think it's really great. Um, I think that there's a very clear need in the market for greater pet health. And so while that problem exists, we have to develop solutions to help with that problem. And so it exists. I'm not so much thinking about, is this going to make $100 million? Is this going to make $500 million? That's more of like an investor's job to think about that. I'm more focused on the problem. Is there a problem? Yes. And what can be done to really solve it and really provide value to people that's going to help them, it's going to help their pets, and really make a difference. And so that's kind of where my my mindset lives. And I do believe that there are win-win scenarios, and there are things that can be um, done on both sides. But we have to do something. We have to build. And going back to what we we're talking about, kind of these large organizations, a large company might not have as much incentive to innovate. If they've got a product that's selling, then it's lucrative to be comfortable in some ways, but it's not going to address new and emerging issues, and larger companies are certainly slower at doing it, but they might not have the same incentive. And so, like we definitely need innovation that starts from outside of corporations. And but I see a lot of companies who are larger companies who are very supportive. So, like for example, right now we're in an accelerator program. P&G is one of the large sponsors. Basically, this building is here because of P&G, and so their corporations are aware of the need to work together with startups.
I think Zach hit on a really key point is which when I've worked for some huge corporations in human health as well as the startups that I mentioned. But if I would personally, I would get frustrated because I said, if we don't obsolete ourselves in the products that we produce, somebody else is going to obsolete us. So sometimes they get very comfortable, right? A number of larger corporations, and this just isn't necessarily a larger corporation issue, but they get comfortable. I have good, nice revenues coming in. This is a great cash making business. I don't want to touch anything. Oh, wait, this new idea, well, it's going to sell for less than our current one does. And that might hurt our profit line. Well, if you don't do it internally, somebody else is going to do it. So the way I look at it is, even though you release something to market, you've already got to be looking to obsolete what you just released to market, and continue to improve upon it because somebody else will do it. And I think sometimes that's where larger corporations can struggle. Again, not always, because there's many fine companies out there, but it can hamstring them a lot. And I've seen that. I've been in industry for 40 years. I've seen that many times where it's comfortable, and it's about total de-risk. And oh, by the way, if you do take on a risk internally, sometimes what you pursued fails, instead of saying, hey, we still learn from that, it can actually take the sort of opposite, where it's like, you're blacklisted in some respects, where they put you off to the side because you took that risk, it failed, and they don't like those sorts of things to occur. Again, I'm generalizing, which is always sort of unfair. But I think it's important to have that freedom to incubate, freedom to innovate, and sort of change how we do, the normal way of thinking.
So, what do you guys see as a need from your working experience, your lived experience, and what you're both doing with new companies and startups? What do you Zach's touched on one of the big corporates providing the sponsorship for his startup accelerator. What else do you see as the need that's necessary to help support others following in your footsteps? Recommend they look for?
I'll take it from a selfish perspective. I think if they can help with, doing proof of concepts, if we using our technology, they can run some proof of concept studies to show that we can actually help them in solving their problems, but it also helps to validate our solution. I think that's good. I think certainly, cash. Startups are always, need to keep the money coming in order to continue to innovate. So investment can be a huge help. And then depending on where you want to take your company, if you can build the relationship where they might want to be your distribution arm, or maybe they want, your sales and your channels to the market. I think there's a number of ways that they can really come alongside and help the company be successful. Even things like providing space, or maybe they have equipment that is just too expensive for an early stage company to afford. I think there's a number of different ways to do it, but it can be slow. I mean, I've worked with a couple major strategics that we've brought to very nice relationships, and they've taken almost 2 years each. There's a lot of effort and energy that goes into there, because a lot of things that Zach was mentioning, earlier in the last section that we were talking about. So we can move quick. It's tough a lot of times for them to move as quick.
Yeah, I think so. As a small startup, we're deeply passionate about listening to our customers in a way that no corporation is going to be able to do. And so I would say vote with your wallet. If you want innovation to exist, then try a new product. And especially if it's being created by a startup, they will actually listen to you and hear your feedback. And you can have, in most cases, one on one conversations with the people who are actually writing the code and building it, and your voice will matter in that product and will be used to create the thing that doesn't exist. A corporation, your voice is drowned by the 100,000 reviews of other people who have had slightly differing opinions, and maybe their KPIs for this quarter they don't quite match, or maybe their budgets, they're not able to fund features that are going to be solving for your problem. But a startup can, and especially ones that are going out and finding their early markets and where they're seeing traction. Your voice definitely matters in those products.
Yeah.
So, as we come towards the close of the hour, I've been conscious of your time, and thank you very much. Is there anything that I haven't asked, that we've missed, that you had a burning desire to share? A thought, what I call a golden nugget, somebody in the audience can take away and say, a book, even a book you've read, a website, a webinar you've been to recently.
I would say, just a couple things is, whatever your creation is, your innovation is, look to protect it. It can be tougher depending on what you're trying to bring to market than others. But, we're a small company and we already have 97 patents and 4 trade secrets and 12 trademarks. So I'd say try to protect whatever you're doing, and not as the end game, right? It's just part of running the business and making sure you can do what you hope you can do. I would also say, to Zach's point, you definitely continue to keep that passion. You're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be some days you want to throw in the towel, but just remember why you started all this, and what you're trying to bring as the end game, and continue. Think big. As big as you can. Try not to get stuck into those narrow channels, and where you're not giving yourself that freedom to sort of think. And again, to Zach's point, if you have that diversity of talent, listen to what all those different people are bringing to the equation. I think that's really important. So those are just a couple things I would mention. There's more, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I would say be a continuous student, always be learning, because you've got to learn how to, if you want to bring a product to market through a business, then you've got to learn how to run a business. You've got to learn how to build a product. You have to be the expert in that product, and you have to be excited about it enough to the point where you're constantly having conversations about that thing so you can continuously iterate. So there's 3 or 4 different jobs that you need to learn how to do, and you have to at least be an expert in one of them. And so just like continue learning and have fun. And if you're pushing yourself too hard where you're not having fun, you're not going to want to learn the next day and the next week. And so just have fun, be a continuous student, and have that student mindset so you can learn all of these things that you need to learn to bring the product to market.
I think what Zach is saying too is really key, especially that being a continuous student. I think you can take that and make it to where what you're creating is not a one-hit wonder, right? If you can come up with a bigger solution overall, it doesn't mean going to market, for first instance, it's got to be to do everything for everybody. But if you can continue to say, hey, this is like a platform type of solution that has many different use scenarios, that can be huge versus something that has a one-off, and the company has nothing else in the queue beyond that. So definitely continue, as Zach said, to be that student, constantly have that passion for learning, and continue to grow your company and your solution.
I think this has been a wonderful business class. Thank you. I'm so humbled that you shared your experience and your expertise to our audience, and thank you both for joining us on the sofa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was really great.
Yeah, we'll share your details in our web pages and so forth, so people can find you. So we'll put your details of where they can contact you in future references and so forth. But wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Spencer.
No, it's a pleasure, Albert, and thanks, Zach.
For futures untold, Rebound Dog, where stories unfold.